Allie with PotomacBeads.com and PotomacBeads.eu, and today to mix it up, I'm going to be using some gemstones in Chakra colors in 8mm round, along with our newest RounDuo mini. Gather up the supplies that are listed at the beginning and join me making the Harmony bracelet. So to begin the Harmony bracelet, I have 2 needles on 0.006 white wildfire thread, and I have about 6 feet. You want to make sure that you're equal distance in thread basically, and that you have the same amount of thread on both sides of the needle with the same amount of a tail. Because we are starting with both needles, we're going to add our clasp first. So I have the table cup button here, and I'm going to add 3 of my 15 O's in that aluminum silver to one side of the needles, and then I'm going to take the button and go through the center or the top of the button with one needle coming out each one of your holes. When you pull down, that'll place those 3 little beads just right on the top of that button. Coming out of the button then, go ahead and grab 3 15s on both the right needle and the left needle as well. Let that drop down next to your project, to the back of the button. From there, we're going to take one of our RounDuo minis, and I'm going to do the same thing, taking one, going through the needle on the right hand side, one on the left hand side. Again, you want to make sure that you have equal distance of thread then coming out the back of the button. After the after the table cup button, and then also the 15 O's and the RounDuo, we're going to begin the design doing the actual flower sections of that Harmony bracelet. To do so, we are going to add a 15 to both our right and our left needle, and then we're going to put on the first of one of those chakra stones. So I'm going to actually start backwards, or start here with my amethyst. I don't want to start with the moonstone because I'm right against a white button. I'm going to take both needle and thread through the amethyst bead in the same direction. And again, just make sure as you're starting out here that you have equal amounts of thread on either side. Once that amethyst bead is on, you're going to separate out the needles. One is going to go to the left-hand side and one is going to go to the right-hand side of the project. From here, a pattern of 1 15 and then 1 RounDuo mini is going to go on each needle, and we're going to do 3 sets of that. You want to make sure that you have a 15 before and after those 3 RounDuo minis and the 15s in the middle. The needle then is going to go back through the 8mm bead, starting from the bottom near the button and coming out the top of the amethyst. Once you have that on one side and you have those little petals, we're going to repeat on the other side. So again, you have a 15 O spacing in between 3 RounDuo minis, starting and ending with a 15. Once you have those 3 on, we're going back through that amethyst bead, again going through and adding all of those on, and coming out the outside of the project. Push it down so that way it kind of forces it to one side and the other side. From here, we are going to repeat that process over and over, adding our chakra stones. And as we add them between each set, I want you to pick up a 15 on each needle, go through a new RounDuo mini, one needle going through the left side, one needle going through the right, so that'll put a 15 before each. Letting that drop down next to your gemstone, separate the needles, add a 15 to each needle, and then time to start over. So now I'm going to add my demortarite or my sodalite bead here, and add those in and let that drop down next to that RounDuo mini. Now that I have that in there, now I'm going to repeat getting that little flower design, separate out the right and the left needles, and you're going to add your 3 RounDuo minis, starting, ending, and having 15 O's in the middle. So you end up adding 4 15s, and you have your 3 RounDuo minis. circle back through. That's sort of like bead, and out the top. Again, now I'm going to repeat that with the left-hand side as well, adding in those 3 RounDuo minis. And I'm going to continue up adding in the chakra stones as I build to the length of my wrist. Once you're finished adding your chakra stones, and I ended up with 11 on my bracelet, and it's going to be pretty standard size. If you do need a little bit longer, you may end up with 12 beads on your bracelet. That is going to be determined obviously by your wrist size. With the project, once you have on the last of your RounDuo minis, we're going to create the loop for our table cup button to sit in. To do so, I want to pick up about 35 or so of my 15-0 seed beads in that aluminum silver color. So I'm just going to add a bunch onto one of the needles, and I'm not really worrying whether or not it's the right or the left needle, because eventually both threads are going to go through and reinforce it as we go up towards the actual table cup button. So putting on my seed beads here, I just want to make sure I have on enough seed beads that it is going to fit over the button. If you are using a toggle clasp or a clasp guard and clasps, you want to make sure to use a wire guard or a wire protector. You could use that beforehand, or you can go right in with a thread, but you would be doing that now. So once I know that the actual loop size is going to be good enough, I'm going to take the needle and thread that I'm using right now, and I'm going to go down through the RounDuo mini on the 15-0 that I ended up putting on top. With the other piece of thread then, I'm going to reinforce that loop, making sure that there is a second set of thread going through. Anytime you have a clasp or closure, you want to make sure that you have more than one thread pass, because that is going to be the area on your bracelet that gets the most wear and tear as you take the bracelet on and off. So I'm reinforcing this loop, and just like the other thread, once you get done the loop, you're going to go through the RounDuo mini, so your thread is coming out right after the RounDuo mini. And I happen to have Moonstone bead as my last bead, so I have that on there. And so one needle is going to be coming out to the right hand side of that RounDuo mini, one is through the left. I'm going to push and kind of pull, making sure that I don't have any extra thread exposed in the project. And then we're going to get ready to basically make this cooperate and this harmony bracelet lay down with those little flowers on the exterior edge. To do so, in my example piece, I use some gecko beads to add just a little bit of a fun and funky flair. I'm going to be adding crystals on the outside as I work with it. So you want to make sure you have your 15-0 seed beads ready and also your crystals. So I have 1.5 millimeter by 2 millimeter Potomac crystal rondelles, and I'm going with the whole silver theme because I really want the chakra stones to stand out. To get into putting the stones on, you're going to add 3 of your seed beads, and we're doing this whole thing with 15-0s. So I'm going to do 3 15s, and I'm going to connect to the second hole, and I'm on the right hand side. I'm connecting to the second hole of the RounDuo mini. In between the RounDuo minis, I'm going to pick up my crystal and catch that open second hole for a little bling there on the outer edge. After coming out the next RounDuo mini, same thing, little bling, grab through that next hole of the RounDuo mini. Coming out then the RounDuo mini, I'm going to add my 3 seed beads just like I did at the start, adding in the 3 seed beads and then sewing through that next RounDuo mini. So I've got that on the right hand side. I'm going to do the same thing on the left. So just a repeater, we're doing 3 15s into the second hole or the outer hole of the RounDuo mini, and this is also what's going to help to keep those to a right and a left side. We're going to add a crystal, which is why I love the RounDuo minis having that 2 hole, because you couldn't do that with a regular bead. Another crystal through the 3rd RounDuo mini in line and out. Once I'm out that row and I have those little beads on the outer edge, I'm going to turn here. I like to sew away from me, so you can always turn and work in your project that way. I'm going to add my 3 15s, and I'm going to sew through the opposite side of the RounDuo mini below. That's going to finish up this gemstone here. To connect it to the next gemstone, I'm not just going to proceed doing 3. I'm going to make these seed beads sit nicely. To do so, we're going to do more of a ladder stitch style. I'm going to add my 3 seed beads that eventually will link on to the next RounDuo. But instead, I'm going to, after adding those 3 seed beads, I'm going to sew back through the 3 seed beads from the previous gemstone. I'm then going to go back up through the RounDuo mini again, one more time. So we're circling around, back through those 3 seed beads that you just put on, and then through the RounDuo mini on the outer edge. What that's going to do is hold that nice and in place there. You want to do a little pull too, make sure that's nice and tight. It's going to make a little bit of an eye shape and create a V in there. If you want to, you could pop in another color of a 15 or another 15 along the outer edge. That's up to you. But I'm going to reiterate and show you how to do it again on this left-hand side. And then you will be on your own for a little bit, repeating the process over and over, 11 to 12 times. So I have on my 3 seed beads. I'm coming out my RounDuo mini. I'm going to sew back through the previous 3 seed beads that I just put on. And as I sew back through those 3 previous seed beads, then what I'm going to be doing is actually adding on to and going through, after having those 3 seed beads, pulling the thread through and pull that thread so you don't have any extra remaining. I'm going to sew through the RounDuo mini like I'm going to progress with the bracelet. And then to get a nice V shape, you're going to sew through the 3 you just added, pulling that nice kind of eye shape, making sure to pull the thread, and then up to the next RounDuo mini in the next row. So you can see now I'm in place and I have that nice little V section. I'm in place and ready to add my next grouping of crystals, and then when I come out, I'll go ahead and add my grouping of 3s and repeat just like I did at the start of the bracelet. Coming to the end of the project then, after you have all your RounDuo minis and your little eyes created, what you're going to do is, I've already done it on this right side here. I'm going to flip the project over, move the left side to the right side, grab 3 more of my 15s, just as if I was progressing normally. And I'm going to go through that RounDuo mini that's outside of the clasp, up through, so I just have the right hand needle in my hand now, and this other needle on the left side is just hanging out there. I'm going up through the seed beads along the back of the table cup button. I'm going to come out the front of the button and through the beads that are there, down through the back of the table cup button, and out the opposite side. I'm going to let the needle and thread hang out there, and then I'm going to go back through with the other thread, reinforce again, so that puts 3 pieces of thread through my clasp section here, down the other side then, and out the bottom. To get my needle and thread to match then, I'm going to go through my RounDuo mini towards the bottom, and then I'm going to go back up through the RounDuo mini. So it's going to expose a little bit of thread on the outside, but you really won't see it, I promise. You're going to get those 2 needles next to one another, or you can bring the other needle down to meet, either way. And then you're simply going to tie off the threads. I probably should have brought it down to meet because then you wouldn't be able to see it nearly as much since there's a lot of seed beads going on there. And if one side for this bracelet, it's going to be reversible. It doesn't matter if it's the right or the left, or the top or the bottom rather of the bead. But if there is a top or a bottom, then I would go ahead and flip to that if you happen to be using a dome bead or something else. The domes would look nice in here as well. Or the you could use the candy beads, and you could also use pyramids for a whole different look, a squared look. Once you have your number of knots, you take your thread burner or your cord cutter. I'm going to take one of my needles and thread, and I'm going to go back up the seed beads here just to get those thread ends away from one another. Actually, I'll go down the RounDuo. And that'll take those thread ends away from one another, so when I burn them, I don't have as much of the thread showing. Burning that off then. Burn them close. And then as I burn, I take my thread in there and burn straight down along my project, making sure that I'm not burning my extra thread. If you need to put glasses on, you took them off, put them back on. Don't burn your extra thread. It's so sad if you do. Once you're done burning the thread then, if you want to, you can do a little dab of glue. That's up to you. But then you are finished with your Harmony bracelet. So it's a really cool bracelet to kind of frame out the different gemstone beads in the chakra. You can use a whole bunch of different materials. Like I said, if you haven't seen some of the better beader videos, we have different examples of things that you could use in place of here. And if you do want to try out something smaller rather than an 8mm, you would just decrease the amount of beads along the outside, most likely from 3 beads to 2 beads, and that'll create a little bit more of a point as well. I intentionally did this all in that aluminum silver and the silver color, so that way, again, those chakra stones did stand out, using the white bead to go along with the actual moonstone for the pendant. I ended up, like I said, using 11 of the chakra stones. You can do 12 if you want to. And then per actual bead, you are going to be using 7 of your RounDuo minis with 1 extra. So however many. So again, I had 11, so I'm going to do 77 plus 1. That's going to be the start. So I ended up with 78 of my RounDuo mini beads to finish the bracelet, and then a bunch of 15s and 4 crystals per little unit. So I ended up with 44 of those 1.5 by 2mm crystal rondelles. Again, in my little example piece, I did a little bit 2 different colors to make kind of the beads stand out. And then along the sides, rather than the crystals, I stuck the gecko beads for a totally different look as well. So if you get a chance to hang out and make the actual Harmony bracelet, depending on what materials you choose, you can give a little thumbs up. Let me know if you like this video. That helps, so that way I know exactly what type of videos you want to see and you want to have published. That way I can move those videos in that style to the top of the queue when looking at all of the things that we have to make. You can also subscribe to this YouTube channel, and that'll give you regular updates when we do new products and have new projects for you available. You can also shop with us online at PotomacBeads.com. We'll put links below the video in the description to order the products online with us, again, at PotomacBeads.com and PotomacBeads.eu. You can also go back to the beginning of the video where we have all of the materials listed out and gather those materials as well. As always, you can join us on Facebook and Instagram and check us out on other social media outlets. Also join our beading group. In Facebook, we have a group for beading and jewelry making, and it's an awesome interactive community that we have been honored to help create. That is a wonderful group of people to help inspire and answer questions alike. As always, thank you so much for watching, and if you do get a chance, have fun making the Harmony bracelet.